February 19th, 2020, Hanau, Germany. A quiet Wednesday night snapped apart as gunfire ripped through two shisha bars miles apart. Panic erupted, sirens wailed, and within minutes, 9 people lay dead. A brutal attack by Tobias Rathon that would change the city's sense of safety forever. Here are 5 victims who recorded themselves. Taking revenge.
This is my last video. It all has to come to this.
May 23rd, 2014, Elliot Rodger, seated behind the wheel of his BMW, stares directly into his camera. He calmly prepares to execute what he calls his day of retribution, an act of deadly misogynistic revenge that would shake communities across America. Before we go any further, it's crucial to establish something. This story is not about glorifying Rodger, but understanding the dangerous trajectory that led from online radicalization to real-world violence. And it all began years before that infamous final video. Rodger grew up privileged in both London and Los Angeles, the son of a filmmaker and stepson to a Hollywood actress. But behind the veneer of wealth, he increasingly isolated himself, struggling socially and mentally throughout his adolescence. He was diagnosed with autism, prescribed various medications, and subjected to years of therapy. Rodger repeatedly expressed his frustration, particularly toward women who rejected him and men he envied. By his late teens, Rodger began posting videos on YouTube detailing his isolation and anger. Online, he discovered like-minded communities, specifically the incel movement that validated and amplified his toxic beliefs. These forums transformed him from a lonely young man into a radicalized misogynist. Listen carefully to his mindset during these recordings.
Girls are not sexually attracted to me. There's a major problem with that. Major problem.
Rodger's sense of entitlement is palpable. He believed society owed him affection, and that rejection justified his brewing rage, and what he couldn't attain, he would destroy. But this was no impulsive act. Rodger meticulously formulated his plan over months, crafting a 137-page manifesto outlining his grievances and his intentions to exact revenge on all those who have denied me pleasure. He detailed an elaborate 3-phase attack targeting women, couples, and anyone he deemed responsible for his misery. His ideology morphed into a twisted, personal manifesto. Rodger decided his final act would serve as a declaration of war against women and sexually active men, those he envisioned as the benefactors of a world that denied him intimate relationships. Leading up to his attack, warning signs multiplied. Family, friends, and therapists all expressed concern about his growing instability and disturbing online presence. His mother even called the police after finding one of his threatening YouTube videos. Yet when officers conducted a welfare check on Rodger, he was able to convince them his videos simply expressed loneliness, not imminent danger. They never searched his apartment. Authorities would later discover the arsenal he'd amassed: 3 handguns, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and multiple knives. His preparedness was chilling and methodical, not the actions of someone suddenly consumed with rage. Rodger's final hours followed a calculated script. He began by stabbing his 2 roommates and their friend, killing them with brutal efficiency. After attempting to clean up the blood, he calmly purchased a latte at Starbucks before emailing his manifesto to over 30 people, including parents, therapists, and childhood friends. Then, he uploaded his now infamous retribution video, laying out his rationale and declaring his intent to punish women and men who represented his frustrations.
This weekend, a lot of us learned for the first time about a kind of subculture, a hidden world of resentment, cynicism, anger against women, where one disturbed young man took refuge.
What followed next devastated the university community of Isla Vista. Rodger attempted to storm a sorority house, but when he couldn't gain entry, he shot 3 Delta 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 sorority sisters outside. 2 died instantly, while the 3rd miraculously survived. He then drove to a nearby deli and killed another student before embarking on a rampage through the streets, shooting, stabbing, and running over pedestrians in a calculated chaos intended to maximize carnage. During this rampage, Rodger ultimately killed 6 people and injured 14 others before turning his gun on himself as police closed in. But the damage extended far beyond those immediate victims. His meticulous documentation and videos would ignite a perverse cult following online that persists to this day. Rodger's premeditated violence and toxic ideology transformed him into a dark figure within incel subculture. Despite clear evidence of his mental illness and years of documented warning signs, online communities now hail him as a saint and supreme gentleman, celebrating his violence as righteous rebellion against a society they believe similarly oppresses them. But for the family shattered by his actions, none of this twisted hero worship matters. 6 promising young lives ended because a troubled individual believed the world owed him sex and affection, and a community of like-minded men would later embrace and celebrate his violence. The internet continues to provide dangerous spaces where frustration, insecurity, and entitlement can metastasize into radicalization. Experts now monitor such forums the way authorities watch extremist groups. Rodger's day of retribution serves as a grim warning about the real-world consequences of unchecked online radicalization. While his attack was ultimately an act of failed revenge, it became the blueprint for subsequent violence by similarly motivated individuals. Yet in the aftermath, something remarkable happened. The Yes All Women movement exploded on social media as millions of women shared their experiences with harassment, rejection, and violence from entitled men. What began as one man's warped attempt at revenge unexpectedly sparked a global conversation about misogyny and gender-based violence. As we examine other cases where victims became perpetrators of revenge, remember that Rodger's legacy is twofold: the horror of his violence and the urgent need to confront the digital subcultures that continue to celebrate and propagate his toxic ideology. And for the next story, all it took was for her to feel victimized by YouTube's demonetization policy for her to take an action of revenge.
Chilling new police radio communications tonight from the YouTube shooting and the very first video tonight of the shooter. She is from Southern California, and KCAL9 has learned she had a grudge against the social media site.
April 3rd, 2018, San Bruno, California. The normally quiet YouTube headquarters erupts in chaos as emergency calls flood local dispatch. Outside, camera crews capture panicked employees evacuating as police secure the campus. The attacker is soon identified. Nasim Najafi Agdam was already known online for her peculiar presence. A vegan activist, fitness enthusiast, animal lover, and self-styled performance artist with thousands of followers across multiple platforms. But what many didn't see behind the quirky costumes and strange dance routines was the growing anger boiling beneath the surface. Hours before the attack, Agdam wore a hollow expression as she meticulously recorded her grievances against YouTube.
And if you go and check my videos, you see that my new videos hardly get views, and my old videos that used to get many views stopped getting views. So this is because I'm being filtered.
Her voice is measured but agitated, describing in detail how her videos suddenly stopped receiving views. The camera zooms in on YouTube analytics screens to prove her point. What seems like a simple content creator complaint soon morphs into a full-blown conspiracy. Agdam's content spanned languages: Persian, Azerbaijani, English, and Turkish, creating bizarre juxtapositions between her fitness routines, comedy sketches, strange music videos, and graphic anti-animal abuse activism. But soon, her energy shifts focus entirely toward the platform she feels betrayed her. Animations and overlays scream, filtered, demonetized, censored. Her increasingly paranoid rants claim YouTube targets creators personally, an enemy within, intent on silencing her message. What set Agdam apart from others angry at platform changes was her methodical documentation. In one ominous segment filmed during a dance video, she stares directly into the camera.
Never talk about your own beliefs. Otherwise, you will be discriminated, and censored. Growing on YouTube is not in your hands.
So the tone grows darker as her warnings shift from practical advice to veiled threats, suggesting severe consequences for platforms that silence creators. Behind the scenes, her family watched nervously. Her father had already warned police she might be heading to the YouTube campus. Agdom's increasingly aggressive posts caught their attention. But when officers found her sleeping in her car near the headquarters, nothing appeared seriously wrong. Her plans remained hidden, barely concealed under the veneer of performance art gone rogue. The morning of April 3rd, Agdom visited a local gun range. Her intentions clear, but unregistered. By noon, she made her way through the YouTube parking garage and approached an outdoor patio area, crowded with employees on their lunch breaks. The attack is brief, but devastating. She empties one magazine before reloading. The carefully chosen Smith & Wesson pistol delivers its payload, leaving 3 injured, 1 critically, before she turns the gun on herself. Security footage later reveals the cold efficiency of her movements, practiced during hours of target shooting. Police later discover what they believe to be her primary target, a specific YouTube employee who apparently survived. But the investigation quickly reveals Agdom's anger wasn't personal. It was a declaration of war on censorship, or so she claimed. The days following the attack reveal even darker truths. Investigators find dozens of unpublished videos, disturbing manifestos, and a carefully orchestrated plan to make her statement with maximum impact. But beneath the surface, one reality becomes brutally clear. This wasn't just about views or money. It was a carefully constructed performance piece designed to leave permanent scars on the platform that betrayed her. Agdom's final act forces a brutal reckoning across the digital creative world. Supporters claim she's a martyr for free speech, while critics see only a dangerous radicalization of platform politics. Today, the video evidence remains archived, including those final dark warnings. The legacy isn't just shock. It's a grim reminder of how quickly performance can become protest, protest can become violence, and violence leaves permanent scars on even the most modern platforms. But while the physical wounds have mostly healed, the digital scars remain permanent. The next segment reveals someone who carried out a horrifying act of revenge simply because he viewed himself as a victim of societal rejection.
This week marks the 5-year anniversary of the Wise Market murder-suicide shooting that left 4 people dead. 2822 Eyewitness News reporter Nicole Rodger shares the story of the sole survivor who came eye to eye with the gunman.
June 8, 2017, 12:57 a.m. The Waste Market store in Eaton Township, Pennsylvania, is nearly empty. Just a handful of overnight staff quietly stocking shelves and prepping the supermarket for the morning rush remain. Then, 24-year-old Randy Robert Stair begins blocking emergency exits with pallets and locking the front doors. Moments later, the store will become a crime scene. Born September 17, 1992, Randy Stair was a creative digital native who started his YouTube channel, Pioneers Productions, in 2007. Initially, it featured sketches and collaborations, but over time the content grew darker, masked in odd animated series, and characters pulled from the Nickelodeon show, Danny Phantom. Randy, writing online as Andrew Blaze, created Ember's Ghost Squad, cartoon ghosts acting as school shooters and twisted fan animations. His obsession with these characters, and particularly the ghost Ember McLean, increased alongside countless references to the Columbine shooters, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. While staff at Wise Markets noticed odd behavior, a growing darkness, erratic moods, no one saw the full picture. Behind the scenes, Randy meticulously documented his plans, compiling suicide tapes and journals detailing his motives and intentions. His last video, titled "The Westboro High Massacre Goodbye," shows him loading his customized shotguns, nicknamed Mackenzie and Rachel, and firing practice shots outside. The video includes animated sequences of his Ghost Squad characters and explicit references to his planned attack. Randy brought 2 custom-modified Mossberg 512-gauge shotguns, one as primary the other a backup in case of malfunction. His target, co-workers at the store. Victims included Victoria Brong, 25, assistant tag manager, Brian Hayes, 47, night manager and Navy veteran, and Terry Lee Sterling, 63, shop assistant. Each was shot multiple times, but one co-worker, Kristen Newell, survived. She later recalled seeing Randy standing in an aisle, then witnessing the killing start. CCTV footage captures Randy standing behind her for 5 long seconds before sparing her and moving on. After the initial violence, Randy fired at random merchandise and several small propane tanks, hoping for an explosion, but the tanks failed to ignite. During this chaos, Newell escaped by breaking through the locked glass front doors and calling 911. With merchandise destroyed, victims down, and sirens approaching, Randy retreated to the deli section. There, he placed the shotgun in his mouth and fired the final round. He left behind a Word document listing all his social media accounts, journals, and suicide tapes, effectively a press kit designed for maximum posthumous attention. Stair's motivations were both complex and disturbingly clear. His writings detail a mix of misanthropy, suicidal ideation, fascination with violence, and a bizarre belief that killing would allow him to be reborn as one of his ghost characters. He viewed the attack as an act of completing his own twisted story. The violent content lingered online. His YouTube tapes remained up for days, while Twitter accounts promoting the attack stayed live even longer. Media coverage largely focused on the failure of social platforms to act quickly, highlighting the challenge of removing violent content. Weiss Markets temporarily closed the store, eventually remodeling and reopening a month later. Some locals refused to enter the new store, while others believed moving would give Randy what he wanted. A simple vigil at the Wyoming County Courthouse brought a fractured community together for a night. In the years since, Randy's attack has become less about the specifics and more about the dangerous mix of online obsession, untreated mental illness, and platform failures. But if you think this plan was sinister and calculated, the next story on our list reveals an even deeper level of premeditated digital violence that will truly shock you.
"18-year-old Pekka Erik Alvanen went on a deadly rampage. During a shooting spree that lasted more than 2 hours, Alvanen killed 6 fellow students, the head teacher and a school nurse, before turning the gun on himself.
On November 7, 2007, the early morning in the small Finnish village of Jokela began quietly, as it usually did, as 18-year-old Pekka Erik Ovinen, later dubbed the YouTube Killer, skipped his first class. Instead of heading to school right away, he launched his computer and prepared to create headlines that would shake Finland and the world. Pekka Erik was not just another troubled teenager. Some described him as shy and prone to isolation, someone who blushed easily and kept to himself. But beneath that quiet exterior festered years of bullying and a growing obsession with violence. Months before that day, Ovinen had rejected psychiatric help offered by his parents, choosing instead to document his disturbing process of radicalization online. By late morning, Ovinen uploaded his chilling manifesto and pre-recorded videos to YouTube, using aliases like Sturmgeist89 and Natural Selector89, openly referencing previous matters and declaring his intent to commit violence. At 11:28 a.m., after shutting down his computer, he biked to Jokela High School carrying a .22 Sig Sauer mosquito pistol and several hundred rounds of ammunition. 3 minutes later, at 11:37, Ovinen slipped into the school's basement via a side door. What unfolded next was a meticulously planned act of violence lasting just over 20 minutes. At 11:42 a.m., he fired his first shot, killing an upper secondary student. It was only the beginning. He killed 5 more, including the school nurse, Sirka Karaka, who had tried to call for help. The brutality escalated as he sought more victims. By 11:47 a.m., head teacher Helena Kalmi courageously issued an announcement over the PA system, urging staff and students to barricade themselves. Minutes later, Ovinen rampaged through the corridors, attempting to burn the building by pouring flammable liquid and shouting threats at those who opposed him. Despite his best efforts, his attempted arson failed. In a moment that revealed a sliver of his calculated nature, Ovinen encountered the mother of a student in the hallway. He spared her, but soon after he tracked down and executed another teacher. Ascending to the second floor, he found two students on a bench. One managed to escape, but the other was not as fortunate. Ovinen's violence seemed unstoppable. He shot through locked doors, injuring more students. When he reached the canteen, the locked doors forced him to shoot through glass as terrified staff and students escaped through the kitchen. By then, chaos gripped Jokela High School. Emergency calls flooded in while police and ambulances raced to the scene. At 11:57 a.m., a final act of cold-blooded violence unfolded as Ovinen encountered head teacher Kalmi outside by the pond. She pleaded with him to surrender, but in front of witnesses, Ovinen shot her 7 times. She died almost immediately. Ovinen then re-entered the school, breaking into a classroom filled with students. He declared a revolution, ordering them to destroy school property. As confusion spread, he fired his weapon at a television and through windows, but left without hurting anyone in that room. The toll in less than half an hour was catastrophic. 8 lives were lost while 13 more were injured, one by gunfire, others by shrapnel or while fleeing, and countless lives forever changed. Finally, at 12:04 p.m., as police surrounded the building, Ovinen retreated to a bathroom near the canteen. He shot himself in the head, but survived the initial wound. Law enforcement discovered him 2 hours later and transported him to Helsinki University Central Hospital, where he died later that night at 10:15 p.m. The aftermath resonated far beyond Jokela. Finnish flags flew at half-staff, and a nationwide moment of silence honored the victims. A massive 2,000-page police report chronicled every horrific detail. The tragedy shocked a country known for its peaceful culture, especially as Finland had one of Europe's highest gun ownership rates, but low violent crime. Ovinen left behind an online trail that also revealed disturbing connections to other troubled individuals, including Dylan Kasi, a 14-year-old American arrested in Philadelphia for planning a similar attack, apparently after online communication with Ovinen. This calculated attack wasn't just a senseless act of violence, it was a meticulously documented manifesto, recorded, uploaded, and distributed before Ovinen pulled the trigger. His manifesto demanded a war on the weak-minded masses, referencing Nazi ideology and social Darwinism. His final requests included leaving behind carefully crafted videos, images, and files for authorities and the world to find. Ovinen's act unleashed a wave of copycat threats, prompting panic in Finnish schools and communities. The horror in Jokela was not the end, but rather the catalyst for a disturbing chapter in Finnish history. And what unfolded in our next case would reveal just how far some are willing to go to carry out their xenophobic intentions.
This is my personal message to all Americans. Your country is under control of invisible secret societies. They use unknown evil methods like mind control.
February 19th, 2020, Hanau, Germany. Gunfire cracked through the streets, sharp and rapid, ricocheting off buildings around 2 shisha bars just miles apart. Panicked voices erupted, doors slammed shut, sirens screamed to life, and by the time the city understood what was happening, 9 people lay dead. But the terror unfolding in Hanau wasn't random. The horror behind these attacks ran deeper, darker, and far more delusional than anyone could have imagined. At the center of it all stood Tobias Rathon, a 43-year-old lifelong resident of Hesse. To anyone who crossed paths with him, Rathon looked ordinary. He attended local schools, earned a business administration degree, bounced between finance jobs, and never caused much trouble. A quiet man, withdrawn, sure, but nothing outwardly alarming. But beneath that unremarkable exterior was a storm brewing for years. Rathon's mind was a labyrinth of paranoia, resentment, and conspiratorial obsession. And by late 2019, those obsessions finally started spilling out into the world. In November, he wrote a letter to German authorities, claiming a secret service was controlling his thoughts. He insisted shadowy operatives had been monitoring him since childhood, manipulating him with mind control technology. He begged for help, yet the message was so unhinged, so disconnected from reality, that authorities dismissed it as delusion. By February 2020, Rathon's worldview had fully unraveled. In the days before the attack, he uploaded a 24-page manifesto and a bizarre video where he rambled about government conspiracies, elite, child, torture cults, underground bases, and secret societies pulling the strings of world events. His ideology was a patchwork of far-right racism, incel bitterness, and internet-fueled conspiracy theories, stitched together into a worldview only he believed made sense. He argued for the complete annihilation of entire populations, specifically people from South Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. He claimed they were dragging Germany backward. He framed his hatred as a kind of mission, a delusion masquerading as righteousness. On February 19th, Rathon acted on that mission. His first stop, the Midnight Bar, a small popular shisha lounge where locals gathered for late-night drinks. He walked in with purpose, opening fire without hesitation. Chaos erupted instantly. Then he got back in his car and drove 2 kilometers to his second target, the Arena Bar and Cafe. Another place known for its welcoming immigrant community. Another deliberate choice. He walked inside, aimed, and fired again. By the time he left, the damage was irreversible. Among the victims was Gökhan Gültekin, a hard-working Afghan-German man who had been behind the bar that night. Mercedes Kirpach, a bartender expecting a child, was murdered where she stood. Vili Viorel Paun, a 22-year-old Romanian delivery driver, spotted Rathon fleeing the first crime scene and tried to follow him, hoping to alert police, hoping to do something. Rathon shot him dead in his car. These were people living ordinary lives, all targeted simply because they came from families who weren't German enough for Rathon's delusional worldview. After the killings, Rathon returned to the house he shared with his elderly parents. In one final act of twisted logic, he shot and killed his 72-year-old disabled mother, convinced he was saving her from the same imaginary forces he believed tormented him. Minutes later, he turned the gun on himself. Inside his room, investigators found a digital shrine to his grievances, multiple videos, rants in English and German, links to conspiracy sites, pages of writing outlining fantasies of mass extermination. It wasn't the manifesto of a revolutionary. It was the diary of a man fully consumed by his own delusions. Yet it was dangerous all the same. Rathon wasn't part of an organized terror cell. He didn't belong to a militant group. No secret meetings, no military training, no handlers. But his attack fit a growing pattern worldwide. Lone wolf extremists radicalized entirely online, isolated in their bedrooms, feeding off a stew of racism, misogyny, and conspiracy theories until something inside snaps. What happened in Hanau wasn't just a hate crime, it was racial terror, planned, targeted, and fueled by an ideology that thrives in the dark corners of the internet. The massacre exposed deep fault lines in modern society, the rise of online radicalization, the spread of unhinged conspiracy culture, the growing boldness of far-right extremism, and the devastating consequences of untreated mental breakdowns, combined with access to guns. Hanau's tragedy is a reminder that radicalization doesn't always come from organizations. Sometimes it grows quietly, inside one person, until his private fantasies spill into public violence. The victims deserved better, Germany deserved better, and the world, still grappling with the aftermath, continues to learn the hard truth. Extremism no longer needs armies. Sometimes all it needs is one man convinced the world is out to get him, and the internet ready to fuel every delusion he has.